Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Wednesday, February 5th, we're in the library at we're not in the library at Bellows Falls Union High School. That's where school board meetings generally take place in this building. We're in the auditorium at Bellows Falls Union High School, and the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union Board will come to order. I want to once again begin by going down the table here and making introductions. Brenda, can you start us off?
Representing Rockingham and Bellows Falls Union High School. Lynn Morgan representing Athens on the Athens Grafton Westminster Board.
Can't hear you back here, Dave.
Where's the microphone? Is it on?
Is your microphone on?
This one is, yeah.
Closer.
That one on? That's on.
Yeah, we don't know how to
Lynn
turn these
Morgan
on.
Oh, the button on the bottom.
for Athens on the Athens Grafton Westminster Board. That's better.
That's better.
Charles Chase from
Yeah, that's
Athens on the Athens Grafton School Board.
Molly Bannock, Westminster, Bellows Falls Union High School Chair.
Chris Pratt, Superintendent.
David Clark, I represent Westminster on the Union High School Board.
I'm Jessica Westlark from Grafton on the Forced Merger Transitional Board.
Deborah Wright, Bellows Falls Union High School.
There you go.
I'm Jack Breyer, and I'm on both the high school and the involuntarily consolidated board, and here in a non-voting capacity tonight.
I'm Josh Aberman, I'm the board recorder.
And Priscilla,
Okay.
Priscilla Lambert.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Lambert. I'm on the Rockingham board and the high school board.
Quick show of hands, please, tonight, voting members. Hey, quorum. I want to begin by explaining that we're here to begin taking some proactive steps to put systems in place to prevent the kinds of problems that we've been discussing for the last 2 weeks. In order to help the business office run more efficiently, the people who work in the business office are just like the rest of us. They're always trying to do the best job they can, and they deserve some recognition for that. This board recognizes just how hard they work and commends them for it. Just like we commend you for coming into our schools and giving it your best every day. And believe me, we really do appreciate it. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda, Chris?
I do not.
Okay. Are there any communications and public comments? Okay. We have some unfinished business and some updates. Update on payroll matters, Chris.
Since last Wednesday, I can report out that W-2s were all mailed out on Friday, the 31st. Back pay checks have been issued as of today, and we're trying to wrap up the business office study and hopefully have something out by the end of next week.
Okay, Chris, what about the update on employee questions?
Field them as they come in. I've been posting answers to the questions that we have as I get them. I think the last update was a few days ago.
Hey, show of hands if you got your W-2. I got a W-2. Anybody else on this board get one? I did. Okay. Oh, well, I think we'll need to check that, Jessica. Okay, we have some new business for discussion and action, and the 2 items here. The first is the creation of an audit committee. Chris just referenced what I would refer to as a management report, which will examine and hopefully give us some recommendations about the current state of the business office, and the recommendations hopefully would be toward best practices so that the business office can move the ball up the field and we don't end up sitting in this room again having the kinds of discussions that we've had here the last 3 weeks. This board has expressed some concerns about whether or not we should actually consider auditing some aspects of the business operation. And I feel very strongly that it's not the board's job to do the investigating, but it is the board's job to decide if that is something that we need to look at. And I have spoken offline about this with Deb Wright. And Deb, I am going to recognize you if you're willing to speak to the matter of audit here.
Is it on? Okay. Okay, it's on. I believe the only way we can be truly thorough about this process is to have a forensic audit. And I wouldn't just say some, I would say all, especially since it's been going on for months, and some people have said it's been going on a lot longer than previously understood. I believe that that's important to do. I would like to know what the purpose of a committee for audit is, because it would be a simple matter of contacting our current attorney or whatever, and getting a recommendation on an auditor who is not our annual auditor, or even contacting the annual audit business to find someone to perform what we need at this time and as quickly as possible. So I'd like to understand what's the purpose of starting a committee, please.
Deb, I would like to respond to your question. And my answer to your question is that having an audit, particularly a forensic audit, is, I believe, outside of the normal parameters of what's expected of administration. I believe that this board is certainly in a position to give direction to administration to institute that forensic audit, but quite frankly, what I'm looking for are some board members who are willing to work with administration to find out who can do it, how long it'll take, what it'll cost, and report back to this board so that this board can give the administration go ahead to do it. I'm going to make the presumption that you would be willing to work on that committee.
Yes.
Okay, is there anyone else on this board who would be willing to work on an audit committee with Deb? Jack has his hand up? Okay. You as well, Priscilla?
I would be willing.
Okay, so we're going to have an audit committee which will consist of Jack, Deb, and Priscilla. I'm going to write that down. You got it, though, I presume. Is that correct? Josh? Yes, I do. Okay. Now, I suppose that it would probably be a wise step if we actually formally voted the creation of an audit committee, now that we know we have people willing to do the work. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and a second. Yep. Charles got your second. Do you have anyone else, Josh?
Was it Deb with the motion, Jessa with the second?
Okay. So, motion is to create an audit committee of this board. We already have volunteers for it. Is there further discussion under the motion? Mr. Breyer.
There's a real difference between a forensic audit and an internal audit, having sat on audit committees in the past. And I think that we're not entirely clear at this point which we need. Forensic sounds good, but forensic is actually a very limited kind of audit to determine if a crime has been committed. Irregularities that are not crimes are not necessarily the subject of a forensic audit. An internal audit can be as broad or as narrow as we choose it to be, and one of the reasons you have an audit committee is to put the parameters for that audit in place. The type of audit that schools normally do can be called a balance of accounts audit. It's a very cursory kind of thing. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking to find out things about whether or not our software has been causing problems, or if data has been put in improperly and how it's been put in. Those are the types of things that an internal audit does. It's not necessarily rise to a criminal level. You have to decide what your assumptions are, and I think one of the reasons for having a committee is to look at that in a little bit of detail and then go forward from there. It's one of the reasons I volunteered for this, is because I know the difference.
The board chair would like to query his colleague from Grafton. And Jack, we have on the agenda here an item B, which is to create a software committee. Is it your assumption, your belief that an audit committee could also cover the software issues that we've been experiencing?
I think that it's really helpful to have at least one person who looks at this from a purely tech perspective, and you could have a joint audit and tech committee if you wish, but I'm looking at this, I make claims for software expertise, but I know there's some people on this board that have a lot more than I do, and I'm looking at one of them. And if she's willing to join us in a joint committee, that would be a cool thing, but no pressure.
I'm going to...
I get the hint.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that we could go ahead and vote the audit committee, and if we have support for a separate software committee, we'll have a separate software committee. If we don't, it's my belief that those responsibilities could be subsumed by an audit committee. Further discussion under the motion. Rick?
So to follow up on what Jack was saying, I'm also assuming this is going to be a procedural audit to look at how things are processed and how the work is done and who's doing what to make sure that there's a good flow work process.
Flow, yes, indeed.
Jessica?
Sorry. I would like to propose sort of a friendly amendment that we perhaps rename this a business practice committee or something to that effect.
Business practice and audit committee.
I would accept that friendly amendment.
I've offered a friendly amendment that perhaps we just rename a single committee to a business practice review committee or something to that effect. Audit committee is pretty narrow.
Is there a second? Second. To the amendment. Okay, the amendment has been moved by Jessa, seconded by Rick. Discussion. Do you want to speak to your motion or your amendment rather, Jessa?
No, I think I covered it pretty well. Audit committee would be a very narrow focus if we're doing a business practice
Audit committee slash audit.
business practice analysis. If someone has a better name for it, that way you can cover these things and not have two separate committees.
Josh, what are you calling it?
Business Practice Committee, and I've heard Business Practice Analysis Committee, so it's up to you, Jessica.
Okay. Okay.
Discussion.
Discussion.
I accepted the amendment, but I want to make sure that in that it is understood that what we call it, that audit is part of the purpose of the committee. I just want to make sure whether the word disappears, that the purpose doesn't disappear.
Further discussion under the friendly amendment, which is now the main motion.
Could we possibly combine the name and call it Business Practice Analysis and Audit Committee? That way we've covered everything.
I would consider that to be an amendment to the
Okay, so I'll make it as an amendment.
Do we have to vote on the first amendment first?
Probably.
I think we have to.
I will
Let's do
withdraw
that.
the first
Okay.
amendment.
Ready for
withdrawing the first
Jess's amendment?
She withdrew.
I will withdraw that amendment.
I will accept your withdrawal.
And then Priscilla can make a new amendment.
Okay.
Okay. Your amendment, please.
I will make a friendly amendment that we rename the committee to Business Practice Analysis
second.
amendment.
Okay, it's a second from Rick. All right, discussion under the amendment.
Wait, who's on that committee?
Thank you.
Say, but including Jessa? Anybody else? Okay.
All right. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're back to the motion now. And Josh, would you please read it back in its current form for us?
Sure. The original motion was by Deb Wright to form a audit committee. The amendment was withdrawn by Jessa, so the current amendment is to form a committee that will be named the Business Practice Analysis and Audit Committee.
All right then, discussion under the motion. All those in favor of the motion? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Do we have official acronym for that?
I hope not.
Is that BPA and A? C? That's a long.
The answer is no, we don't.
Okay.
Hopefully it's a long list.
We will be holding an executive session shortly for the purpose of this update on the superintendent evaluation. We did have some discussion of that in the room at the Bellows Falls Middle School last week. We will also be discussing an update on a legal matter. However, before we get there, we have two items to take care of here. Director's comments. I'm going to start down on the end, Rick. With you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out again Wednesday so that we're not the only ones spending our nights. And I want to reiterate my thanks to everyone who has reached out to us and kept us in the loop. And thank you for your patience, even though I know that it is thin when we are trying to get through this. So.
Thanks, Rick. Priscilla?
I'm hoping that as a result of all of you people coming out and giving all of your input and all of the responses from the board and the business department, that we can get to the bottom of all of this and straighten everything out.
Thank you, Priscilla. Jack?
My thanks to the folks who pointed out at the high school, as they were leaving the high school, that the meeting wasn't at the, junior high school, that the meeting wasn't at the junior high school, it was here. I see at least two people who turned around about the same time I did. I hope that we start to get back to regular order, but I hope that if we do that, people continue to come to our meetings, because these kind of issues need the input of our teachers and our broader community.
Thank you, Jack. Deb?
Yes, so I hope that the committee, as it has now been named, will be swift and accurate. I'd like to see this pass and let's move forward. Secondly, the last part of the Vermont Council on Rural Development community visit takes place next, what is that, Wednesday? February 13th? Yep. 6:30, is that Thursday? My mistake, 6:30, that's right, because Valentine's Day is the next day. 6:30 to 9 o'clock, it'll be at the Bellows Falls Middle School. So those of you who are interested in the ideas that came forward from the other two visits from January and February, please try to participate if you can. I believe there'll be opportunities for, snacks, and children can be there and present if it makes it easier for parents and that sort of thing, which makes a big difference in our community. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica.
On the 13th, there is also a budget meeting in Grafton.
Oh, sorry.
Wyndham Northeast Union Elementary District. And then I would like to express my willingness to serve on the Business Practice Analysis and Audit Committee.
Thank you, Jessica. Brenda?
I'm just looking forward to moving forward and gaining the understanding of what happened so that we can work on it.
Lynn?
I'm just hoping that these meetings will bring all of this to closure and that everybody will be able to get back on track.
Charles? Molly?
No, thank you.
Okay. comment will be in the context of date of next meeting. It's on the agenda as a to be determined. I anticipate that our next meeting will either be the regular WNESU meeting, which will occur just before the high school annual meeting, or if we have a management report back from Marilyn, what's her name? I'm having a block here.
I can't recall her last name.
When we have a management report back from Marilyn, who has been working in the business office, it is very probable that we will schedule a meeting so that we can discuss that. At this point, I also like to thank everyone who's turned out tonight, because this is important work of your board. And I'm looking for a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of an update on the superintendent's evaluation, and also an update on a legal matter. The chair does not anticipate that any action will result from that executive session. That's a heads up to Fact TV. I have a hand before we go in. Yes.
Are we allowed to ask questions? Like, can I ask a question right now or no?
Well, we have gone past communication and public comment. However, with the board's concurrence, I think that we would like to hear your question. And I just want to say that we're trying to get this meeting over with soon, because a lot of people spend a lot of time under this roof or the middle school roof. But any objection from the board? No. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Holly Taylor, and I am a kindergarten teacher in Saxons River. It's my first year in the district. I just wanted to know, thanks. I just wanted to know, I have a cold, I'm sick. If this goes back to another meeting that I was at, if there were, I know there's 3 districts that volunteered to use this new system, and I'm wondering if anybody has checked to see if the other 2 districts that volunteered to use this new financial system are having the same difficulties that we've had. That's one of my questions. And my other question is, has anyone in administration gone to the state to say, hey, this system that you've given us to use, or expecting the whole state to use, has all these issues? Is that something that's...
Molly, you're entitled to an answer, if for no other reason than the fact that you've been patient. I appreciate the patience that people in the room have shown with us tonight. 12 districts initially were first adopters for the education finance software. 9 of them dropped it early on. I do not know what the status of the other 2 is. If Chris knows, and he can tell us briefly, let's have an answer. Otherwise, that's a question that will get posted to the website, hopefully with a prompt response to it. And as far as the second part of your question goes, as to whether the state has been notified of problems with software, I'm going to defer to Superintendent Pratt.
In regards to your first question, I know that the other 3 SUs have experienced difficulties and problems with them. How similar or same they are to ours, I don't know. I do know that they were experiencing the same, difficulties with the software e-finance program. So, like I said, I couldn't tell you exactly what their issues were, but yes, other SUs that remained on the other 3 were experiencing difficulties as well. What was the second part of the question?
Well, the second part of the question was what the experience of the other districts was, and whether it had been discussed with the state agency of education.
Yeah, it was, Edie Cole was one of the business managers who testified in front of the State Board of Education in regards to the flaws with the program. I think that was back in May, I believe. So the state is aware of it. because many of the business administrators throughout the state did testify in front of the committee in regards to expressing their difficulties and the flaws with the program. So yes, the state is aware of it.
That was last May.
Yes.
Done so subsequently too, Chris, because I was talking to Edie about this just the other day. I think they've at least twice, if not 3 times, have surfaced similar sets of issues. I don't have the specifics in front of me, but
It's an ongoing conversation that the Business Administrators Association of the state continue to have amongst themselves and with the Agency of Education and the state.
Here's your answer. We are on the cusp of going into executive session. We're also trotting some ground that we've been over at the first 2 meetings. I do realize that I have a hand from Rhonda, and I'm about to recognize you, Rhonda, and give you what is going to be, I think, last say on the night. So please go right ahead. Why don't you let Molly bring you the mic so that we can all hear you loud and clear.
Rhonda Williams, and I would just like to say, first of all, I think that you have confused everybody in the audience in regards to a question and answer time, because in the last few meetings, you had said public comments at the beginning, and then because there were so many questions, you have gone back to that question time later on in the meeting. And as far as I know, the meeting is slated from 7 to 9 o'clock, and it is probably about 7:25 right now. And so if the meeting is slated to be at 9 o'clock, why are we in such a hurry to get out of here? There are a lot of people here that have questions and would really like some answers. So that's my first point of comment. My second would be is that, David, you were so nice to ask about who would receive W-2s and to please raise your hand. I'd like to say, if you've received W-2s, that's wonderful, and could we please have a show of hands of how do you feel? Are those W-2s accurate? Because Edie Cole did state in a meeting that those numbers were going to be accurate. And so I would like to say, could you please ask the staff here in the audience how they feel, and they've reviewed their W-2s. Do you feel that the information on those W-2s are accurate?
Rhonda, I want to respond to you 2 points. First off, the accuracy of W-2s is somewhat of a conjectural statement, and we can spend an awful lot of time here this evening discussing whether my W-2 is accurate or your W-2 is accurate or anybody else's W-2 is accurate. That's not the purpose of putting a 2-hour time frame around this meeting. Quite frankly, I didn't think we were going to need 2 hours tonight, and I was kind of surprised to see that there.
But that's why these people came out tonight, because you gave them the opportunity at other meetings to speak up and to ask questions, and that's why they're here. That is so unfair. And the third thing I had to ask is that the $135 an hour person that we're paying in the business office right now, is that person not doing some of what you're asking about an audit?
Rhonda, I'm going to answer your last question first, which is that what's occurring in the business office is a management audit. And that is for the purpose of giving Chris Pratt insight and direction as to what has caused the breakdowns in service that people in this room have experienced. With regard to question and answer, we had question and answer the first 2 meetings that we've held, and quite bluntly, we're not going to continue to reinvent that wheel tonight. We listed communication and public comment. I am always happy to take relevant questions and discussions while we are discussing the board's business, which in this case was an audit committee, and also whether or not we're going to have a software committee. I see more hands, but I'm going to tell you quite bluntly that at this point I'm asking this board for a motion to go into executive session. I have explained that when we have a management report back, that we will reconvene in this room and we will spend just as much time as we need as a group to go through it and make sure that all the questions which that audit committee, that management report either raises or answers are thoroughly discussed. I would like a motion now, please, to go into executive session. If you have a mistaken W-2, you need to bring that to the attention of the business office through the person of Chris Pratt, who's superintendent of schools. He's your direct conduit to the business office.
Can I mail it to them?
Please, please do. Okay, I would like a motion now to go into executive session. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion, we go into executive session to discuss contractual and legal matters which could cause harm to either party.
Do I have a second? Oh, Charles has a second. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed?
Me.
Nay.
Okay, show of hands. In favor? Show of hands, please, in favor? Okay, I have 2 hands in favor, is that correct? A show of hands who are opposed. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 hands. Okay, so we're not going into executive session.
Quite yet.
What is this board's pleasure?
My recommendation would be to go around the room, give everyone the opportunity to ask the questions that they need, and then we can go into executive session once they've got some answers.
Well, Deb, that certainly is the board's prerogative. My concern, as I have already stated, is we've already had questions which were brought up in the previous meetings. If the board wants to do that again, that's what we will do. Okay.
David, they may have additional questions that are different.
Okay. We're looking for new questions which have not been discussed during the first 2 meetings. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to...
Even if we can hear you.
Yep, I've been to all 3. I just want to bring it to the attention of the board that, yes, we received our retro pay today, and I believe at least 3 of us have said that there are errors. I think I have been overpaid by about $100. And that was today. That's the newest updated thing. So it's still ongoing, even with today's pay. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew the status on that.
I know that you didn't want questions that were related to the last 2, but has there been any movement on an answer from Ameritrade other than you sent a letter? It's been a week, I believe, since that letter went out?
It's been about 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks now. Yeah, Teresa and Edie have tried to reach out to their contact many times, and they're not getting any answers back from Ameritrade at all. I got an email this afternoon giving me an update on the status of that, if they've heard back. They have not heard back from their contact at Ameritrade. So from there, I've reached out to our legal, and they're formulating a legal letter to go to Ameritrade because we're requesting certain information that was brought to us the first Wednesday meeting in regards to the compensation that people are owed from their 403s, and we've yet to receive that either. So yeah, they've tried reaching out on a regular basis, and what I'm being told is that there has been no contact back from their contact at Ameritrade.
So as an individual, it would be my right to contact Ameritrade and ask them for my personal information on my loss from November 4th, I believe it was, until
November.
just January,
Yeah.
I believe.
I would, because we're trying to get that information for all of you, but it's my understanding we're not getting anything.
Okay, and my second statement is, this meeting, if I might be incorrect, but it came from you as an email as a special meeting. And so my assumption, and I think a few other people assumed, that this was a special meeting to either get an update or some answers, and not a meeting that was just a regular board meeting. So I know I had an after-school activity today, 5:30 to 6:30 at the middle school, because I teach there, but I intended to be here for 7 o'clock because it was a special meeting, of which I did not see an agenda posted, unless there was one and I missed it. If there was, I apologize, but I never saw one. So I really was the impression that this was a special meeting to inform teachers and people who work for the district of some information and answers. So, I mean, it's been a long day for us too, but I'd be more than willing to sit here to hear some answers, because that's what I assumed I was here for.
Brenda, I'm going to respond to you on that. I asked to have a special meeting tonight for two purposes. One was to ensure that the board took some more direct action with regard to dealing with the issues which have impacted all the staff in this district. That was the purpose of an audit committee and a software committee. You now know what the outcome of that is. We also listed on the agenda, I have to put my glasses on, I'm sorry, update on payroll matters and update on employees' questions. And, you know, I have to say that I am somewhat in error here, because I felt that the update on employees' questions was to find out from Chris whether any new questions had appeared on the website and whether those questions had been answered, and also whether all of the questions that were raised during the first two meetings had been posted and whether those questions had been answered. It was not my intent as the chair to have another session tonight which is similar to the first two we had, because we have a pretty good idea from staff what the problems are, and I think what you want us to do about it. You've heard it loud and clear that errors that affect your paycheck or your retirement, we own it. This board owns it. This board, through the superintendent of schools, has taken substantive steps to try to address those issues. With regard to business office issues, Chris brought in a specialist to try to identify what they are, what caused them, how we correct them. With regard to Ameritrade, Chris, after our first meeting, wrote to Ameritrade requesting a response, got no response. We put our heads together, decided it was time to have Pietro Lynn write to TD Ameritrade on our behalf. We will await a response, hopefully, to council, which wasn't forthcoming to the superintendent of schools. I am very strongly of the belief that if there are additional questions, it's hugely helpful if we can get them in writing, because a lot of people in the room tonight, but there are also a lot of people who aren't in the room tonight who deserve the same answers to the questions which have been raised here previously. And what I'm talking about is, we just heard that there appears to be retro pay which is incorrect. Well, I would appreciate it if you would put that in writing to the business office via Chris, so we can get it straightened out.
Absolutely. We just got it today.
Okay. Rhonda raised the question of, do we know our W-2s are accurate? And once again, the response is, if there are people in this room who are aware that their W-2 is inaccurate, then they need to bring that to the attention of the business office, once again through the conduit of the superintendent of schools. And there's a reason for this. And that is that, as I said earlier tonight, people who work in the business office are really the same kind of people that the people sitting in this room tonight, be you para, member of the public, a teacher, board member, and they have been working very long hours to try to sort those issues out. And those issues will be sorted out. I'm going to say it one more time. The board's involvement is, at this point, is going to be much more proactive than it has in the past. I understand that there are a lot, and I see your hand, but I understand that there are a lot of people in the room who would like to continue dialogue over, what has happened. I think the people sitting at this table, and actually I think the people in the room, have a pretty good idea of what's happened. The focus of this board is to make sure that those problems get fixed and those problems never happen again. It's the purpose of our coming in here tonight, to take some proactive steps toward addressing the issues which we've had in the past, and maybe are still ongoing. If they're still ongoing, then we need to know that so we can fix it. And I hope that you will share with your colleagues, anyone who thinks that their retro pay or their W-2 is inaccurate. They need to get that information to Chris so I can bring it to the business office and we'll get a prompt resolution on it. Thank you for your patience. You had a hand up?
Dave, I just want to real quick, because we had a question. If you go onto the new website, the agenda is there. If you click on board, scroll down to WNESU board, click on that, and go to the bottom, you'll see the agenda for tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Well, I had a hand down here, if we're ready to take. Can I get you this one, Jessica?
I think it is important for us, though, like the retro pay being wrong because we were overpaid. Like, when you do fix it and you take it back, that might be really hard for some people. That's just, so dismissing it as unimportant right now because you're trying to fix it doesn't make us feel better.
Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry. Jessica had her hand up, and then I think Priscilla after Jessica. Go ahead, Jessica.
There's the simple answer on why this is called a special meeting is not that it's like a special topic. It's that it's a meeting called outside of the regularly scheduled. That's the term for it, a special meeting. So that might have been confusing to people. And then the other comment I just have for the superintendent to give to Lynn Pietro is that people's filing of taxes can be held up waiting for an answer on the Ameritrade. If they could just stress that.
Yes.
That we'd like to put a date on hearing back from them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Priscilla.
Along with explaining what we're doing, could you explain to them?
We can't hear you.
Can you hear that?
Here we go.
Along with explaining to them what you're doing as far as with Ameritrade and that, can you explain to them what Marilyn's role is in the business department and how she's going to manage that, and if she's doing any training for the personnel there, and her capacity to straighten things out with Edie supposed to be leaving at the end of the year? Is Edie's replacement in that mix of being trained at the same time?
Yeah, Marilyn's role isn't to train anyone. What she's going back is she's looking at how we got to where we are based on whether it's past practices or if there was going into setting up e-finance if something was missed and why it was missed. So she's looking at it at different levels. She's interviewed all the people in the office. She's gone through what we currently have in the systems. She's looking at what possibly could have held us up in the new system. If there was stuff that wasn't completed in the business office during the time of transferring from one system to another. So she's looking at a bunch of things, but actually going in and training is not part of that. As far as when Teresa takes over for Edie, when Edie retires at the end of the year, she's not part of that training transition. And we posted for a staff accountant. I posted that last week. So the plan for that is we're hoping to, if we can get a candidate in sooner than later, to start the training process to work with Teresa. Once that person's trained, Teresa can start working closer with Edie. So midsummer, we're well underway and people are comfortable in the positions they're doing. So we're not starting off the school year with people in positions who don't know how the systems operate or the procedures that we follow.
You've been recognized.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I'm from the high school. I just had a question. I wondered why some got retro pay and others didn't receive it. Because I had received an email from Edie a while ago saying that that wouldn't happen. I just was wondering why that is.
There are a number of different duties or after-school activities or such that a lot of people do. Also, some of the retro pay might go back because the contract for the support staff was ratified later. So I believe there's been a couple different rounds of back pay for retro pay, and they're trying to finish up the last round now.
Denise, Mike's coming over.
Thank you.
So I have two questions. If your retro pay is incorrect, either too much or too little, do you want us to cash that check and then wait for the difference, or would you prefer we down cash it and give it back to you?
I would say it's, if you need the money, you need to cash a check, you can't hang on to it.
Okay. And the second question is, how did you figure the retro pay? Did that go back to the beginning of the school year or back to summer school from the CBA, just to clarify that?
I couldn't answer that question. I'd have to ask the business office that.
Okay, because I know with summer school at Westminster, it's, there's the camp, and then there was people who worked as special ed paras one-on-ones, so that would be part of the collective bargaining agreement, so.
Yeah, I think if we're looking at, if a lot of the retro pay comes from the CBA that was finally ratified, that would be from July 1st of 2019 to current. So I would assume it could cover the summer camps and stuff that teachers are under the SU.
Okay, thank you so much.
Board? Okay, you have a hand.
I have a question in regards to the retro pay as well. It was my assumption that they shouldn't be taking out 403B and flex spending out of that, or Beamers, is that correct?
I couldn't, it's a good question. I couldn't give you the answer, but
okay, I'll
if
send
you want to email that to me, I'd be happy to check it.
Yep, I will get that together for you. Thank you.
Questions? Board? Okay, I would like to have a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of an update on the superintendent's evaluation and an update on a legal matter. You have the motion, Jack?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second? Lynn's got the second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the chair wants to apologize to the House for his inadvertently rude behavior. I'll try and do better the next time we sit down together.